Hi, I'm Owen Binks, and you're listening to Weekly Dartscast episode 181. No score.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Weekly Dartscast. Alex Moss here, back as always with Darts statistician and the half marathon man, Burton, DeWitt. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Just happy that we're finally in Worlds. How are you, Alex?
Yeah, I'm doing good too. Thank you very much. We're 20 games into Darts now. Sadly, 16 of those games, though, at the PDC World Championship have been played behind closed doors. This is obviously the news that came out since our last show when we did our preview show, a day before the start of the tournament, that play would be behind closed doors after that first night, at least up until December 23rd and before we come back after the festive break. But how much of a difference do you think it's going to make, the lack of crowd in the tournament now?
Well, I mean, it already has made a difference. And the artificial crowd being out of order in the final leg of Danny Lobby's loss to Ryan Searle showed that. I don't know why they pressed the button as if he had hit. I mean, we've heard the misjudge it before, but that was a good inch off. Had no business there. And that lack of a crowd literally made a difference there because Lobby had to stop. There's no reason to think he would have hit the double anyway, but it took him out of his rhythm. It took him out, and it was not the way that match should have ended for either player, because it's one of the matches of the tournament so far. So literally it has made a difference, but I think it will continue to, even if we put that aside. Part of what makes the World Championships is the crowd, for better and for worse. Just the drunken debauchery that is the 4,000 people in Alexandra Palace, and we're going to miss out on that. Even if there were people there, we were going to miss out on that because of the protocols, even on the first day, basically to be quiet, for lack of any other word, to prevent the risk of spreading COVID if anyone there has it. So we were going to have it even if there was a small crowd. That would have been different, but it makes a difference because the players don't get that atmosphere, and it's especially important for the players who are on debut, and many of whom might never play again. You never know. There's no guarantee that you'll be in the World Championships for a second time, and to lose out on that experience is strange. It's strange. I guess something we hadn't talked about before was that perspective on it. We should have probably talked about it at the World Match Play and the World Grand Prix, where you're seeing people like, Ryan Searle, who get through for the first time. They don't get to play in front of the crowd. Who knows if they'll ever get that experience before? I think that's the biggest thing, players missing out on that. But it is going to make a difference because the atmosphere is different. And while the quality has been good, it is missing that little bit, and that's the crowd.
It was a big blow, wasn't it? I think just over 24 hours before the tournament was due to get underway on that Tuesday evening, the news comes out from the PDC that it's going to be behind closed doors up until December 23rd. When we come back on December 27th for the rest of the tournament, who knows if we'll be able to get a crowd back in there. But you've got to say the signs are looking pretty unlikely for that, and that the rest of the tournament will be played behind closed doors. And it's a big shame because we spoke to Barry Hearn on the show and he was really looking forward to hopefully getting some fans back in. It wasn't confirmed at that point, hoping to get 1,000 in, and they've jumped through a lot of hurdles to get those fans in. We got it for the opening night, which was good to see. When you're seeing some fans back in there, you kind of feel like maybe there's light at the end of the tunnel. We are starting to get back to a little bit of normality, like we've seen with the Premier League football. We've seen some fans come back into the stadiums recently, which has been good, but I think it is going to make a difference. And okay, yeah, the fans not being there is a big miss, but on the other side of things, we've still got the venue, we've still got Ali Pali, which I think even that makes a factor in this tournament because, as you say, a lot of these players making their debut in this tournament, we don't know if we'll see them again in it, but to play at the venue, play at Ali Pali, it has become an iconic venue in darts. It is what we associate the World Championship with. Of course, back in the day, it used to be Lakeside Circus Tavern, but nowadays that reputation has been built at Ali Pali. Everyone wants to go there, be it as a player or a fan. That's what they all work towards. So I think that was kind of lost really when we saw that World Championship announcement. A lot of the focus was, we could get fans back, but I kind of focused on we are going to get that venue for the tournament, which was good. We're not going to see it in Milton Keynes and Coventry, where we've seen a lot of the events move to this year because of the virus. In that respect, I think it's good that we have still got the venue. It does look very different though without the fans, with there being just the artificial crowd noise and everything, and the walk on and everything being different. But yeah, based on what we've seen over the last 6-9 months, when we've had these big events on TV, there is going to be different results that we might not expect. We could even see a different winner. Who knows? It's still a long way to go, and players coping with this new World Championship atmosphere that we've got. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out now.
A lot of the headlines have gone to Diogo Portela, who won his first match at the World Championship, and Jamie Lewis, who just today, as we're recording, won his first round match. Not the first time he's ever won a match at the World Championship, because he's been to the semifinals. But both of them talking openly about mental health. How important could their bravery be for changing the image of darts?
The image of darts, it is changing. I think you go back years ago, it used to be this sort of macho environment. Of course, going way back now, but obviously it was played in the pubs, a lot of it, and it was a kind of a male-dominated sport. And long-time listeners of the show, you go back to one of the features that we had in the early days, Bristow's Twitter, when he was coming out with all sorts of things on Twitter. And of course, the one that most people will remember is the tweets that he put out one evening that sadly meant that he lost his job on Sky. And, you know, there is no place for it, is there? I know Darts and Sky wanted to distance themselves from that, and rightly so, because these days there is no place for it. But we are seeing the image of darts changing. Of course, you've got the ladies getting the opportunity to play in this tournament and more opportunities for them. You're seeing, as we just saw this week, Lisa playing in it again. The JDC development tour, we're seeing young players, they've got more options on how to get into this sport. It's not going down the traditional pub route and playing in pubs and clubs and things like that. You've now got these tours that have been put on by Steve Brown at the JDC, by the PDC for the development tour, to get players through into the system. But just on the two players that we mentioned there, Diogo, it was good to see him get that first win at Ali Pali. Of course, first Brazilian player to win. It's a big moment for him. He's been a guest on our first and 100th episode of the show, so of course he's got a special place for us in this show anyway. But, you know, we saw the emotion that came out from him on that interview on Sky, and then watching his press conference after. I think the title on the video I watched did have the quotes that mentioned what we're going to talk about, and even knowing that was what he was going to say, even listening to it, the words that come out of his mouth, it was shocking. And it's great that there was that system there. Spoke to Alan Moore a little, the PDPA sporting charts, they did help him, because these are the sort of things that we don't see behind the scenes. And, you know, there was obviously problems going on at home, and it got to that point where he could have potentially took his life. So it's something that he didn't have to talk about, but he felt comfortable to come out with it at that moment, and full credit to him. A lot of bravery. And again, with Jamie Lewis, we've seen his struggles. Maybe we've seen them a bit more openly with the Euro Tour, the 57 average that he had only 2 months ago, coming through that PDPA qualifier. He said in his interviews tonight he wasn't thinking of going to the qualifier until the last minute, but he's come in it. He's potentially got a chance of keeping his tour card if he gets another win against Going Price, but he's talked about his anxiety and other problems like that. And this is a player that, as you say, has got to a semi-final of the World Championship, and things not quite gone his way over the last couple of years. But for these players to come out, I think it's brilliant, and I'm sure it'll help other people out there, maybe not dart players, maybe not dart fans, but maybe even people that just stumble across these interviews and hear these people in public talking about their own problems. Maybe they can relate to it. I think is really good.
Exactly. And it's part of a wider perspective shift on mental health and mental well-being, which the United States, I think, is a little behind the UK in, but hopefully we are catching up, and having sports stars speak openly will help that, regardless where in the world you are. But mental health and mental well-being, and speaking about your mental health and mental well-being, has gone from being perceived as a weakness to perceived as a strength. And it should, because it shows the courage of both of these players to not just to be able to be open, but talk to a worldwide audience about it. And at the World Championships, at what is the most important professional event, to have that courage in yourself to be able to show raw emotion like that is a sign of their strength. It is a sign of the shifting both of perceptions of society, but as well of darts becoming a sport, I was about to say for every man, but for every person, as you rightly pointed out, with two ladies in the field for the third year in a row, and every chance that there'll be more than two next year, not because they'll up the amount, but because Lisa Ashton will qualify by right, or Fallon Sherrick will win a tour card and qualify by right, or Mikura Suzuki. There's plenty of players who could. So it's part of that shifting face of darts, and part of that is showing that they are human beings like all of us. At least I assume that if you're listening to the show, you're a human being. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important because it does personify the competitors. And let's also not forget just how well both of them played. Full stop. Let alone while still having to deal with personal demons. Portela winning his first match, and take that first set out where both he and Steve Beaton really struggled. Portela was brilliant in the second and third sets. And Jamie Lewis, he also had a poor first set. Didn't have that bad of a second set, but he was running into a fourth set in Luke Woodhouse. But to be able, when nothing has gone his way on the Aki for so long, to play so well to fight back from 2-0 down is also a testament. They showed courage in their interviews. They showed courage off the Aki, but they also showed it on it. And not just being there, but to perform like that. That only helps make them icons.
And now we'll move on to our first guest on this week's show, and it is with the production director for Nodor International, Lee Huxtable.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the production director for Nodor International, Lee Huxtable. Thanks again for the time, Lee. How are you doing?
Hi, Alex. Very good, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for joining us. And now let's start with that role, production director. Just talk us through what that involves and how it came about you taking up a position in the world of producing darts.
Probably, I've been with the company now for 17 years. Coming from an engineering background with previously done a fair bit of travel, and the job appealed to me at the time, and obviously the game of darts. So we actually manufacture in Nairobi, Kenya. So there's a fair bit of travelling involved, and my job really is about keeping production going, coming up with new products, dealing with new designs, new players, just everything product related really.
Well, you mentioned there the 17 years. That immediately jumps off the page for me, because look back to 2002, 2003 time, there's been a lot that's happened with regards to technology and everything involved in making the darts. So how do you look back on those 17 years and how the industry has changed in that time?
Yeah, you're right there. It's changed massively. I think around at the time we had fairly small stable players. Dennis Priestley, Andy Fordham, Trina Gulliver. And around about that time, we started fitting players on a sort of professional basis. So players started to come in, deal directly on a one-to-one basis, developing the data exactly how they wanted them. So around that time, I think Dennis was one of the first to come in, and it just grew from there, really. We then started to grow stable players, and things have moved on a lot. As far as dart design, both sort of functionally and aesthetically, and we're always trying to really push the boundaries,
Before joining Nodor, what was your role in darts? Did you have any role at all? Was it just watching as a fan or even playing yourself? What was your interest in darts before then?
Both really, watching and playing on a social level. And like I say, when I saw the job come in locally, it appealed to me very much. And since that time then, I've seen a lot of changes within the company. We've moved forward a hell of a lot in different areas. I think at the time we were working on Blade 2, and obviously now Blade 5 has been in the market for the last couple of years. So that's always a continuous process, product development.
Definitely. Well, as I was speaking to you off air, I've been meaning to get you on the show for a little while, ever since really the now infamous text that started doing the rounds on social media on New Year's Day, start of this year. You know which one I'm on about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 11th of December last year, Peter Wright, one of the players under the Red Dragon umbrella, messages you on WhatsApp to say, back him to win the Worlds, thanking you for making him a future world champion. What was your initial reaction when you saw that text?
I didn't get too excited, if I'm honest, at the time. Obviously, I was pleased, but having worked on a personal level with Pete for many years now, sent him a lot of different concepts, a lot of different samples, a lot of different designs. So yeah, I was confident he was going to use them at the Worlds, and I was obviously very hopeful that he was going to do well with them. But I kind of in the back of my mind, I was waiting to see what happened, how he would manage on the big stage. Obviously very similar timing to this year. It was straight after the Players Championship, I think, where he'd had a pretty below par performance, and I was actually working at our factory in Kenya at the time, so it was a bit of a remote fit-in. So we had a good discussion one evening, came up with some ideas and concepts, and got them back to him straight away, really. And they certainly did the job for him.
Definitely, yeah. And as we know, Peter's notorious for changing his darts quite a bit. So how many different darts, different setups would you say that you've created or worked on with Peter since you two started together, and what is he like to work with?
First of all, he's a pleasure to work with. Never any issues. Like I say, I'm quite experienced now, and knowing when he's kind of due for a little change, or when he's going to expect a change, or when I can expect a little tweak here or there. As far as how many samples, into the hundreds, I would imagine probably 200 maybe, I suppose. I tend to keep a master of every dart I've ever sent out to one of our pro players. I always keep a master dated, so every one of our pros has got their own sort of drawer with everything we've ever done for them, and Pete's got a few more draws than everyone else, to say that.
Well, as we know now, we saw Peter go all the way, win the title, beat Michael van Gerwen in the final, and yourself get some deserved recognition in his interviews afterwards. How proud does it make you when you see your hard work pay off like that with a player?
Oh, massively, because especially with Pete, because we've been through so much. I mean, he got the finals. There's not many players out there putting more effort into their game, attention to detail. So to see him win it after everything we'd been through was magical, really. Obviously, we've won titles with other players and other darts, but I think the journey that Pete had been on, probably over 12 years, I guess, we've been working with him to finally get the world's and to see his emotion really on the stage, it was fantastic.
And of course, Peter wasn't the only player that you made darts for that went on to win a world title at the start of this year. Only a few weeks later, Wayne Warren, another player under Red Dragon, winning at the O2 the BDO title. Just talk us through the process of Wayne's winning darts.
Well, Wayne, it was, again, fairly short notice before the Worlds, actually, and there was an exhibition quite local to me that a few of us from work attended, and sort of sat down having a chat with Wayne, and he'd just come back off the back of the Grand Slam, I think, where he was struggling with a hand injury and he wasn't really happy with his throw after that. So we decided to try a few things, changing the tungsten percentage of the dart to try and up the weight. Didn't want to go too far from his existing dart, but yeah, he certainly did the trick, and it was a well-deserved victory for Wayne as well.
Definitely was. And when you see two players win the world title in quick succession, both complimenting yourself for their darts, did that lead to more players getting in touch with you asking for help? What was the reaction like after those two wins?
Well, yeah, it's always been, I think amongst the darts players, I think what we offer as a company on a personal level, I don't think any other company can sort of match what we can do in the way that we can turn around things so quickly. I mean, we're always on the end of the phone if anyone needs a tweak or wants to come down at short notice, then sort of the door's always open. Like I say, we've got a pretty high-tech facility now in Bridgend where we can literally do anything on the day. So yeah, sometimes it can take 1 or 2 days, and other times we can nail a design, within an hour or so.
A busy start for the Windmill brand as well. 2020, Michael van Gerwen signing a day after, well, it got announced a day after the PDC World Final. Yeah. For you personally as well, I mean, what's it like working with the world number one? And when you found out, I know you're probably one of the people that knew before it all got announced, but what was it like finding out and knowing that you'd be working with the player that is at the top of the world of darts at the moment?
I think it was exciting for everyone in the company. So we kind of knew about 6 months before. So I had a couple of meetings with Mike privately, and I'd taken measurements of what he was throwing and as much detail as I could get. And then basically we had to come up with, I think, 8 or 9 ranges for launch, all at different levels and categories. So we worked pretty closely with him during that time. Obviously, we had to get all of our product ready for the actual launch day, so a lot of work went into it behind the scenes at the factory and at all levels, So it was a pretty exciting day for us. I think it was pretty much everyone in the company attended. It was well received in the market. It was sort of well organised launch day, and it's been great having him as an ambassador, really, for the brand.
spoke to one of your colleagues, Simon Hall, on the show recently, and we mentioned about Michael winning the UK Open with one of his new windmill sets, and then we saw his slump in form and results. It looks like he's getting back to some form though recently. The Grand Slam, having a good run there, of course winning the Players' Championship finals. What have you worked on with Michael in recent weeks, or have you worked with him much at all to get him back to the form that we've seen?
Well, it's been quite strange, obviously, with COVID. So I felt that at the UK Open, he was playing good enough darts, very confident in what he was doing. He was using a prototype dart at the time and sort of switching back and forth between two weights. Didn't see any issues. Obviously, we then had the first lockdown. I know he had a child during that time. Obviously, a fair amount of time off, and he's decided to go back to the darts that got into world number one at the start, which he's got our full support. Really, we want to get him sort of mentally back at the top of his game. I did spend a couple of days, actually, a month or so ago, basically working on darts for him all day, getting feedback back and forth WhatsApp. I was trying to replicate the measurements I'd taken originally and trying to make them old and the exact same feel and look as his old darts, because at the end of the day he's only got one set of darts. So I know I can match what he needs if anything happens, but I think at the moment he's got a little bit of a mental attachment to the dart he's using, and hopefully he can win the Worlds with them and we can start working together and he can come back into the workshop.
Well, you mentioned there it's been strange times this year with the pandemic and the lockdowns that we've had, and you mentioned there as well it's kind of affected working with players. Are there players who prefer a more hands-on approach and meeting up, and have that to adjust with the times that we're in at the moment?
Yeah, we do get visits on quite a regular basis during normal times. Certainly if anyone is in the sort of southwest region, I think they'll all jump at the chance to just come in for a visit with all the guys and have a little practice throw and try a few different things if need be. It's been a little bit different in the last 8 months, whereas it's been a little bit more remote, but we have managed to get some players in for fitting if needed. Obviously we had Joe Cullen. We managed to get him in a couple of times in the summer, socially distanced, but we did manage. But yeah, a lot of the players, I think a lot of the time they enjoy coming into the workshop and having a little play around, even if it's just to prove to themselves that what they're using is right, you know.
You touched on it a little bit earlier about you've got your production plant over in Kenya, your HQ based in Wales, of course, but you've got the team in Kenya where you're harvesting the sisal which is used to make the dart boards. Just talk us through your setup over there.
First of all, I've got to mention we got some superb British management team over there, and Darren and Andy looking after things. They've done a superb job in the last 8 months. But it's a large facility. Everything, all high-tech equipment. The guys in the UK play a massive part in keeping all of the consumables and the procurement and everything, feeding it full of all the components to make what we do, and we're pretty pleased with the way things have gone out there. We think that the quality of the stuff that we're producing at the moment is of a higher standard. The dartboard sales speak for themselves. Yes, it's worked well. I've been travelling out there now for the last 16 years, so got on a pretty good relationship with a lot of the management team and a lot of the locals.
Well, we should give a mention as well to the Windmill Launch, which of course took place online on Friday last week. Some exciting new products coming out to the market now. What's it like seeing all the new darts and things that you've been working on go to the market?
Well, it's a culmination really of a massive effort by a lot of people behind the scenes, and sort of it's a big day for us. Everyone's sort of glued, trying to get as much feedback as they can, and everyone's flat out trying to get product out. So right the way through the board is a lot of effort, and it's a culmination of a lot of hard work. But then the following day, as our MD said, the cycle starts again. We start working on stuff for the following year. I think this year has been particularly satisfying, knowing the challenges that we have had, trying to basically come up with new products and source everything, and actually to get everything ready the launch day has been a pretty good effort.
Lastly, before we let you go, it's an exciting time of year for darts fans, everyone involved in darts, with the PDC World Championship coming up just over a week now until it gets underway when we're talking. Is this week in the lead up now a quieter period working with the players? Have they nailed down their choice of darts to use at Ali Pali, or is there still times when you get players tinkering at the last minute?
Oh, there's definitely still time. Yeah, certainly there are quite a few players you may see using new darts at the Worlds this year. Some haven't even received them yet, but yeah, it is a busy time of year. Ideally, I would like to see it happening a little bit sooner, but yeah, I've got Simon Whitlock is looking for a slight change. I was working on some darts for Pete last Friday, so I'm waiting for some feedback on those first prototypes and hopefully push something through. Obviously, it's getting pretty close now, but yeah, this time of year, I think everyone, certainly after the Players' Championship, everyone is looking, right, what do I need to give myself the best opportunity, you know? So, yes, it is a busy time of year.
Well, Lee, it's a pleasure to chat to you, get you on the show, and we wish all your players that you're involved with all the best for the World Championship and the rest of the year.
Okay, great. It's a pleasure to be on there. Thanks, Alex.
Support for the weekly Dartscast is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code ADONIS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code ADONIS. Your balls will thank you. Now, if you excuse me.
Thanks again to Lee for joining us. Now, another topic on the World Championship. We've seen 5 out of 5 seeds safely through to the third round so far, when we're talking the first round almost halfway to being complete as well. But from the first 3 days of play, who's caught your eye at Ali Pali so far?
Well, excluding the two players we just talked about, because you have to say Diogo Portela and Jamie Lewis did. Diogo in the first round, and not necessarily second round, because he definitely tailed off, and then Jamie Lewis, of course, on Thursday. But excluding them, since we have spoken about them already, it's been a good start to the tournament. You look at some players who weren't necessarily in the best of form, who played on the Wednesday as the seeded players and had everything thrown at them, but somehow got over the line. Chris Dobie coming back to beat Jeff Smith, and Daryl Gurney missing a few match starts, seeing Willie O'Connor come back from 2 sets down to level it, but to both of them to be able to lift their game and get over the line and play really well overall with a lot of pressure on them. I was impressed with both of them, because those were two of the seeded players you would have liked to draw if you got to pick your draw as an unseeded player coming in based on their form. They really impressed me, just how well they played. Also, the Japanese qualifier, Edward Folks, didn't know anything about him. Dan Dawson was tweeting afterwards that he basically showed up on accident, was going to play the soft tip tour this year for the first time in 4 years. That didn't happen because of COVID. So he saw the advertisement for the PDC Asia qualifier, showed up, won that. And turns out he is a fantastic player, because he had a very high quality performance in beating Mike DeDecker, player we know nothing about. And it shows just how deep that quality is in Asia. That someone, that doesn't even play is able to do that and beat Mike DeDecker like that. And I'll throw out, you could keep going because the quality's been so good. But I'll say someone who's lost as well. Danny Lauby, Ryan Searle just was a monster in that match, and Lauby stuck with him. Searle missed 2 darts to win the second set. Lauby took out a 1-4-8. Searle missed a few darts to win the match in the 4th set. Lauby held his nerve, forced the last leg decider. Showed a lot of bottle in that match against someone who was playing really, really well. So you could say both of them, but I do want to give a shout out to the American, and not just for getting put off by the artificial crowd.
Yeah, my list is pretty similar, but if we're asking who's caught your eye at Ali Pali so far, I don't think you can start without mentioning the world champion Peter Wright. That outfit that he came out to on the opening night, the Grinch, was, I think that's the best he's done. Well, you could say the best, you could say the worst, but the most eye-catching outfit that he's come out to. We've seen some crackers during the World Championship, particularly during this time of year, but that one was yeah, definitely eye-catching. His performance, not the best, you've got to say. I was looking back, his World Championships, that was the lowest average that he's had in the World Championship for 9 years. So not the way you want to get your World Championship up and running when you're defending it. But the main thing, of course, for Pete Wright was getting that W. But a few names like you mentioned there are down on the list as well. Edward Foulkes, that was a very good performance today. The 140 checkout that he had, the 144 checkout that he had to leave 20. I think a bit of maths gone wrong there for him, but he was very good. I think he was 50% on the doubles the first set, 102 average, your first ever set in the World Championship. That takes some doing to put in a performance at that level. Okay, the next two sets he dropped off a little bit, but 3-0 win, can't really have too many complaints about that, can you? A few others I had down here as well. As you say, Daryl Gurney, very good today, the 99 average. Okay, he was 2-0 up and got pegged back into a real dogfight there against Willie O'Connor, but got over the line, and it's been a little while for him since we've seen him do well on TV, and he looked very good in a lot of parts of that game. Ryan Searle as well, I had him down here on the preview show. I picked him out as my dark horse, and he managed to go a little bit further than one of the players you mentioned, Boris Kirchmar, tonight. And two other players I mentioned as well. A lot of people saying it's the game of the tournament. That might have changed after today for some people, but Adam Hunt, Lisa Ashton, what a game that was. I missed the first half of it, unfortunately, but following some of the scores and seeing the second half of it, that was a back and forth game, really good battle between those two, and Adam getting over the line in that one, that was a really good game as well. But yeah, there's been some good performances. Chris Dobie as well, I think you mentioned him. That was very good from him to come from 2-0 down, and a player that has been not in the best of form for a long time against a player that was in good form in Jeff Smith. That should give him a lot of confidence for the rest of this tournament.
Now, before the weekend just gone, there was the big announcement about Q School. Now it'll be 2 stages, and players who've dropped off the tour, as well as I think the top 16 from the Challenge Tour, other than those that win tour cards, go straight into the second stage, with everyone else having to enter in the first stage just to earn the right to get to that second stage. What are your thoughts on the announcement?
Well, I think looking back, this is probably the biggest change that we've seen in Q School history. Okay, you could probably give a mention to, I think 2 or 3 years ago now, we had the European Q School come in. So we had the UK Q School and the European one. So players got to pick which one they wanted to go into. That was a big change. But this one that we've seen come out just before the weekend, it's big news. And it's the news that a lot of players were waiting for, because we've seen the field for Q School over the last few years. It's just continued to go up. We go back 2 years, we had around 600 players. This past year, January, 800 plus players. So there are a lot of players going to Q School trying to get those tour cards. And even after the year that we've just had, we know that there's going to be, fingers crossed, normality the second half of next year. So other tours, other events are going to get going again. But you look to the start of 2021, and if you want to pick an organisation to say, yeah, they're going to put some events on, you're going to go with the PDC. So for a lot of players, they will want to go into this Q School. And we knew there was going to be some changes because of the virus at the minute, the social distancing. You couldn't get all those players in one venue, so they were going to have to do something to split it. And we could well see Q School extended, I think maybe played a few days earlier, and split the players in 2 in that first stage. But as far as the changes, I think we were going to see something like this down the line. I think the virus has kind of brought it on a little bit more forward. But as far as the players dropping off the tour, the tour card holders that have lost their tour cards, I can see why they've done this, because this year's not been a usual year. They've not had the chance to maybe defend money in events that they've won from previous years. And some of these events, they've been put on in blocks. We've not had the usual weekend. So it has been very disruptive, and especially for players outside of the UK travelling during this time. We've seen players not travel, decide to stay at home, factoring in their safety more than anything. So I can see why they've done that, give the players that are dropping off a little bit of a chance there. I'm all for the top 16 from the Challenge Tour Development Tour getting a little bit pushed further forward, because again, it's another incentive for players to play on that tour and do well. And we were talking off air, I think maybe there could be a chance further down the line. You look at the other affiliate tours to the PDC, the Asian Tour, the CDC, you say maybe that the top performers in that will give you the opportunity to go into that stage 2 as well. And okay, maybe not all the players will do it, not everyone wants to go to Q School and pursue a career in the PDC, but you may well get a better uptake in players from Asia, from America, come over and say, okay, you've given me that opportunity to go to stage 2, get closer to that dream of getting that tour card. So yeah, I'll give it a go. But I think in the main, I think it was probably the right thing to do. But it is a shame as well that Q School that we've come to know and love over the years, all the players starting from the beginning, you've got your pub players, if you like, the players that aren't going to put in big averages going up against potential former pros that are looking to get back on the tour. But overall, I think it is the right move.
And if I ever go to Q School, it does increase the chances that I can play a match against Mark Walsh, because we're taking out about 40 people or whatever that would have otherwise I would have had to compete against in the draw. So I'm in favor of this for that reason, but more so, I think this is a good decision. And that thing that you mentioned that we talked about off air, I think expanding it out to the PDC's affiliate tours around the world is also the next step for exactly the reasons you said. And, the big reason why this was necessary is because you now have, with so many people, many of them who really cannot make the cut. I know nowhere near making the cut. Not just the people who show up just for the laugh, but some of the players who are just showing up for the experience. Granted, every year one or two of those players goes through and wins a card out of nowhere. It does happen. But many of them are just there to either be able to play the Challenge Tour to get experience or to build to something else in the long term. If you're a former pro or you're one of the players who has a legitimate chance to win a card and you're going against those players, or some of the people you're competing against draws those players while you're drawing another former pro, it's a bit harsh on you. And you might leave with 3 or 4 points having played well, while someone else has got a 9 or 10 because they've gotten a bunch of wins against people who are no chances to win cards. And that was problematic. And it does make the difference right at the edges of who gets a card and who doesn't. To give this protection to former tour card holders, and by former I mean the ones that just dropped off, I think it makes a lot of sense, as well as for the players from the Challenge and Development Tour who have done well. But for those same reasons, those from the affiliate tour should get it, because they've shown that they can make that standard. If you can finish in the top 4 of the Asian Tour and get to Worlds, even if we say the top 8, then you're good enough that you have a chance to win a tour card. And that should be that extra incentive that's there. That's the only additional thing I would add, but I think this was a very good decision. You're right, the COVID did accelerate it. If this wasn't already in the plans, it needed to be to make up for players losing their tour card because they decided not to travel this year. But long term, it needed to happen anyway, and I think it's a very good decision.
Now we'll move on to our final guest on this week's show, and it is a player that we are expecting to see at Q School next month. It is the New Zealand international Haupai Puha.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the New Zealand international Haupai Puha. Thanks very much again for joining us. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad.
Now, we'll come back to talk about the World Championship a little bit later, but when we're talking, of course, the order of play has just come out and you're going to be making your debut December the 18th, the Friday afternoon. Is it starting to feel a bit more real now that you're going to be playing in the biggest tournament in darts?
Yeah, most definitely. I've been here for I've been in Europe for over a month now, and it kind of didn't seem like it was ever going to happen. Time in lockdown just goes so slow. So just yesterday having the draw done and today the time that I'm playing, it just definitely makes it feel more real and makes it exciting. That's for sure.
As I say, we'll come back to talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but let's circle back to the start of this year. And you decided, after careful consideration, not to enter Q School in 2020. Of course, players from New Zealand, Australia relocating is a big decision to take, but just talk us through why you decided the time wasn't quite right this time round.
I guess it didn't work with work and family and just commitments back in New Zealand. I wasn't ready to get the tour card, if that makes sense. Like, I could have come and I could have competed, but I mean, you're going there to do a job, and I thought if I did go, I'd get it. But me and my family just weren't ready for me to make it.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And you continued to progress back home on the New Zealand tour. The end of January, you did the double, beating Warren Parry, both finals, and the 2019-20 tour you won, I think, 7 out of 12 events. And that final weekend of the season was cancelled due to the virus and the lockdown. What was your thoughts really when the whole lockdown came in and you weren't able to finish off that season?
I didn't mind because I was already on top, so I had already done enough at the start of the season. Once lockdown
came, and we knew we weren't going to be able to travel to tournaments. I guess it was a blessing in disguise. I was able to spend a lot more time at home with the family, which normally I wouldn't have that much time to do so. So, yeah, I actually enjoyed lockdown.
Well, you kept busy during the lockdown with some darts, the online stuff, live streams. How important did you find having that platform to use to continue playing matches and working on your game while you couldn't travel?
Yeah, at first I was anti webcam darts, but it wasn't until, I guess, there was an easier option as just using the messenger call. And then I started just doing that with mates and that, and then entering tournaments and doing quite well. And I guess, yeah, I really enjoyed that. Just being able to just walk into my man cave and the fridge is already stocked. You know, it was a lot cheaper, didn't have to travel, and oh man, it was a win-win.
Yeah, well, for obvious reasons, we've seen a lot of events, in-person events, cancelled this year. The big one, I suppose, for you has been the World Series. When we mentioned off air that we had you on the show during the World Series last year, unfortunately we didn't see those events in Australia and New Zealand this year. How disappointing was it not to have those events on?
Yeah, well, it was disappointing. It was we always do our calendar at the start of the year, and we had a few overseas trips booked in, like the likes of the Philippines Open and soft tip and stuff like that. So I was supposed to go to Hong Kong and Korea as well. So there was a lot of tournaments that were cancelled, but like I said, I got to stay home and spend a lot of time with the family. So it, yeah, it wasn't too bad, if that makes sense.
Well, one event that did get the green light was the PDC World Cup a little later this year, the normal in November rather than June. When you did get the call up to say that you were going to be in, how excited were you to represent New Zealand again with Cody and also get on that big stage again?
Yeah, well, I actually only got a week's notice to make the decision whether I could go or not. So, I mean, I had to... Obviously, it's always an honour to represent your country. And, I had to... I had to do a bit of... I had to find out whether or not I could actually leave New Zealand, all the processes I needed to do to get over there. And in the end, it worked out quite good.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that. We have to mention the journey that you had to take to get from New Zealand to Austria for the World Cup. I think you put on Twitter something like 30 hours on a plane. Just talk us through that and also any hurdles that you had to overcome to leave home to travel for the event, because we saw right up until the start of the event teams pulling out.
Yeah, well, the hardest part was the COVID test. So I had to get a COVID test in New Zealand, and I had to have a test 48 hours before I landed, which was like, it was not possible because it was 72 hours before I landed in Austria, but it took 48 hours to get the certificate. So that was hard. In the end, it worked out, and I didn't even need to show it in the end. So yeah, so I flew to Kuala Lumpur. We had a 2-hour stopover, and that was a 9.5-hour flight. We had a 2-hour stopover. We had to stay on the plane. And then we went from there to Dubai, and that was another 9 hours. And then I had a 6-hour layover in Dubai. And then went from there to Munich, which was, I think, 7 hours. And then had to wait there for the train, figure out where the train was. But, again, I got into Europe pretty easily. They didn't really check too much of my paperwork. So... Yeah, it was a lot easier to get into Europe than it was to leave New Zealand, that's for sure.
Great to see you and Cody back on that stage together a few weeks ago now. What was it like going up on that stage for the first game? I know it's different circumstances with the no fans, the artificial crowd noise. How did you adjust to it all? Because it looked like, from watching, you adjusted very quickly. Some good finishes in that first round game.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky. The double got in the way. But, I guess we always want to perform how we practice. So... I don't think I played that great, but we did enough. Our opponents didn't really put us under too much pressure, so made it a little bit easier. Yeah, it's a lot easier without a proper crowd, I can tell you that.
Well, the next day you lost out to Canada in the second round. There was a bit of talk on the UK broadcast about the selection for that game, Cody not having a good record against Jeff Smith, so he didn't want to play him. Was that true, or how did the selection work? Because we were probably expecting Jeff Smith against Cody and then yourself to go up against Matt Campbell.
Yeah, I didn't know that, to be honest. But I asked Cody if I could go first. So I didn't know the record with Cody and Jeff. And if you've met Cody, he's pretty like blasé, so he didn't really care whether he went first or second. I thought that if I could get a good start, and there'd be less pressure for me going first. So that was kind of my choice.
Fair enough. Well, back to yourself then. You left New Zealand at the end of October, nearly 5 weeks later when we're talking after the World Cup. You came straight here to the UK, based yourself in England. What was behind that decision not to go back home and then come back here for the World Championship?
Oh, so the first flight I could get out of Austria was the Wednesday after the World Cup. And then my flight got delayed 3 days. So to get back to New Zealand, you have to isolate for 2 weeks. So if I was to go home, I would only be home for a week. And that's if I passed the COVID test to leave isolation. So it wasn't really worth, going home for a week and then having to travel back. So it just made sense to stay here. And it saves paying because you have to pay for isolation in New Zealand as well. It's like $3,500 or something like that. But it wasn't worth paying twice.
Just before the World Cup, you did get that confirmation to say that you would be in the World Championships based on your performances in the DPNZ Tour, and we spoke to Gordon Mathers during the summer. He was one of the first players to get confirmed as an international qualifier through the DPA. I mean, was there any fear that you may miss out? They may decide to go other ways to pick that spot, or were you confident, given those performances, that you would get that spot?
No, it was a total shock, to be honest. Like we have a top 16 qualifier, and for the previous 3 months we've been hounding New Zealand Dart or DPNZ whether or not we're going to have the playoffs, and when they chose me to play in the World Cup, I actually asked that question, like, are we going to have time for me to try and qualify, and it just kept getting later and later and later, and so I actually thought I wasn't going to be there to try and qualify for the William Hill, but I guess luck of the situation, they gave me both spots, and I guess it's just luck in the end. It just worked out better for me to take both spots and to stay over here. It's just everything just keeps working for that to happen.
Well, definitely well deserved, and as we say, you've been based in England for nearly a month now. Only this week we've come out of our second lockdown, so how have you found it living here and away from your family? Has that been the hardest part, being away from them?
It is difficult. It's more so because I work outside being a roofer, and it's hard being locked inside. Even look out the window every day and it's pretty miserable here. But it is hard. But I do a video call every day before the kids go to school and bedtime, so you could probably say I talk to them more so now than I did when I was actually at home.
Brilliant. Well, recently you've been joined by another international qualifier, James Bailey, to come over in the last few weeks. How good has it been to have someone else with you? And you must have been hitting the practice board quite hard with him now.
Yeah, we have been. It's been crazy. We're both not very big on the practice board because we work so many hours. We tend to only play when we have to, or practice when we have to before tournaments and stuff like that. So the last few months, I had only been playing an online game on a Saturday night in New Zealand, and I wouldn't have thrown any other time apart from that. So having all this time, we've been doing 6 to 8 hours a day, and it's a bit of a shock to the body. I can tell you that.
Definitely. Well, the draw did come out yesterday for the World Championship. You're up against Mickey Mansell in the first round, the winner to play Ricky Evans in that second round. And I know you probably won't look too far ahead, but there is the potential of Michael van Gerwen in that third round. Have you looked closer at the draw, or is all the focus on that first round game?
Oh, yeah. You gotta get past the first round first before you can worry about what happens after that. Obviously, I did notice Ricky Evans and MVG being in my draw, but I got to get past Mickey first, and he's a tour card holder, and I've seen him on TV plenty of times, so got to respect his game as much as I can, I guess.
Definitely. Well, an important question we've got to ask is, when you spoke to my co-host Burton last time, he mentioned your different walk-ons that you used during the World Series, a bit of Drake, Hey Baby, which is of course used by Max Hopp on the PDC Tour. So have you had a thought on what you're going to be walking out to at Ali Pali?
I wasn't sure if we actually got one, or if we were having a walk on, or if we're going just from the side of the stage. So nobody's asked me for one. So.
Well, lastly, of course, looking ahead after the World Championship, you're planning to give Q School a go. What's the plan really for after the World Championship? Will you be, of course, staying here in the UK until the Q School comes around? Because at the minute we haven't got much details on when that's going to take place.
Yeah, at this stage, this New Zealand opening the bubble to Australia, and having to book isolation ticket to go with a flight, it's been quite difficult to actually get home. So if I was to stay for Q School, well, that is the plan. I can't get home until February. So at this stage, I have got a flight home for the 1st of January. Obviously, if I'm in the final, then who cares about that flight? But yeah, it looks like I might as well give it a go. So, and my wife backs me. She's telling me to give it a go while I'm here. Just tick all the 3 boxes.
Excellent. Well, we are looking forward to that. We're looking forward to seeing you play in the World Championship for the first time in a few weeks now, and always appreciate your time, and best of luck for when that debut comes round and when Q School comes round as well.
Thanks very much. Cheers, Alex.
Thanks to Haupai for joining us. Now we'll finish up the show with a chat about Low 6. Of course, Low 6 present this show. We appreciate their support, and we had our first contest during the World Championship this week. It feels like a long week already, but yourself, Burton, getting the bragging rights this time round, 8-7 win to you, and on paper it looks very close, but it was over by the end of the first session, winning that one 3-1 and going against our 3 guests for our World Championship preview show and done the business. So a win for you, 8 out of 9. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to everyone that got involved in the contest. I think we ended up with an 8-way tie for that £100 jackpot. So well done to anyone who managed to get in those top 8 places. We've got another contest coming up on Friday. So today, when you listen to this on the day of release, we've got a double session again. We're going to go through the first 4 games of the day. So the games in the afternoon session. You can see the rest of our picks on our Twitter page if you want to see who we're going with for the evening session. But first game of day 4, and it is Mickey Mansell against the man we've just heard from, Haupai Puha. Who are you going for this first game?
Well, I have a tradition going now, and it served me well. I'm not going to break the tradition. If only we had all 9 guests on, I'm pretty sure I would have gone 9 for 9 in the last round. I came close, but I didn't. I went 8 for 9. This time, I got to keep it going. So I'm sorry, Haupai. I've been picking against my guests for the last 2 months, so I'm going to have to pick against you. At this point, I'm pretty sure I'm going to scare everyone away from ever coming on the show. So maybe for the next show, we need to get 2 people who are going head-to-head on, so I cannot pick against both of them, and that will end the streak. But I'll go Mickey Mansell to get over the line 3-1 so that my streak of picking against our guests continues. And if I'm wrong, as I said last time, I'm usually wrong. So congrats, Haupai. I'll be wrong again.
Yeah, I think going forward we're going to have to plan for non-player shows. Yeah, I think this is probably a brave one from you, because I was looking at Mickey Mansell's record in the World Championship, and okay, this is Haupai's debut in the tournament, but Mickey Mansell 0 from 5 appearances. He's not won a game yet. I think Andre Velga's gone 0 from 5. I don't know if anyone's gone 0 for 6 in the PDC version of the World Championship, but we could see a bit of history there for him tomorrow if he does lose. And we've only got to go back a couple of years ago, one of his performances, and he got a fine for it for not playing to the best of his ability, if you remember from the DRA. So this tournament has not been a happy hunting ground for him. Could change tomorrow. I think it is going to be a close game, but I'm going to go with Haupai because he's been over here since the World Cup. He's put his last 2 months into getting ready for this tournament, and wish him all the best of luck. And I'm going to go with him to get the first win of the day. Second game then, it's another good friend of the show, Darius Labanauskas against the Chinese qualified Chengan Liu. Who are you going for this one?
I think this one's a little less brave. I mean, the Chinese players are getting better and better, but they're not there yet. And Darius Labanauskas, he might not be playing as well as he was last year, but he's still playing pretty darn well. And he's qualified fairly comfortably for the World Championships for the 3rd year in a row. I think he's just a class too much. I'd like to see Liu get a set, so I'm going to pick him to get a set. But I think Labanauskas, in the end, will win it 3-1 fairly comfortably to get through to round 2.
Yeah, I think this one's a little bit easier to call. I'm going to go with experience to win this one. And as we know, Darius has been on the tour for a few years now. He's had some scalps in the World Championship. He's, of course, beaten Raymond van Barneveld. He's got to a quarter-final last year. You know, he's got some good memories of this stage of the Ali Pali. So, yeah, like you, I'm going with Darius. Third game, then, it is another game with experience against youth, if you like. It is Wayne Jones against Kieron Tian. How do you see this third game going?
I mean, Wayne Jones playing as well as he's had in a very long time. Maybe his experience will be enough, but it's tough to pick against Tian. He's really coming into his own in the last 6 months or so, and this might just be that opportunity. Yes, I'm going to go him to win this match 3-2. I think Wayne Jones will play well. I think he'll average north of 90, but I think Tian will average north of 95, and that'll be just enough to see him through to round 2.
I didn't actually pick anyone before this game. I was going to wait to see who you go for and then try and make the argument for the other way, but it is a difficult one to call because Wayne Jones is his first year with his new tour card, came through Q School. As far as results this year, okay, he's qualified via the Pro Tour listing in that 30th spot. He had a semi-final in the Summer Series, but we have had a disrupted year. We've only had 4 Euro Tour events. We've had less Players' Championship events. So in any other year, on his form, he may have missed out. He may have had to go to that PDPA qualifier. And then Kieron on the other side of things, missed the Autumn Series. He's had an injury. Results-wise, not been the best for him, but we can kind of say he's had a difficult year with his injuries. Is he coming back into some form? Is it recovered in time? I'm not quite sure. I'll go the other way. I'll go with the experience on this one. I'll go with Wayne Jones. And then the final game of the afternoon, Jamie Hughes against Adam Hunt. This is a second-round game. How do you see this one going?
I forgot that we're picking second-round matches. Whew. I mean, Adam Hunt, as you mentioned, was impressive. I probably should have mentioned him as well, but I wanted to leave at least a couple people for you to talk about earlier, because that was impressive against a player that he had a bad record against in Lisa Ashton. To come through that match with Lisa Ashton playing fairly well herself was very impressive. And Jamie Hughes, I've said it a few times, he's not really kicked on this year, and maybe that's been just based on the weirdness of this year, but he hasn't kicked on like you thought he would after his first year as a tour card holder in 2019. And this is a real potential scalp for Adam Hunt. But Jamie Hughes is a very class competitor. And I'm saying he hasn't kicked on. He hasn't been poor. He just hasn't reached the heights that he did last year. This might just be that time for him to finally kick it into gear. So I think Adam Hunt will play well again, but I think Jamie Hughes will play the best we've seen from him in season 2020, and he'll get over the line 3-1.
In looking at this lineup for tomorrow afternoon when we're talking, I don't think this is one of the sessions that we brought up when we were looking forward to it, but on paper there are some tight games. Okay, maybe not the highest quality, but you can see a lot of these games going 3-1, 3-2, maybe going to that final leg in the end, and this could well be one of them. Adam Hunt, he's got a win on the Ali Pali stage. That is something that Jamie Hughes hasn't done yet. Okay, Jamie made his debut last year, lost in a final set in his first game. Adam Hunt, as I say, he's got that win against Lisa Ashton, and we're seeing him more and more on TV nowadays. We're seeing him win games. We're seeing him compete with top players. And as you say, Jamie Hughes on the other side of things, you mentioned him on our previous show as a potential dark horse if he can find his form. You could well see him go on a deep run here, but this is a tough hurdle for him. You've gone with Jamie on this one. I'll be different as well. I'll go with Adam then just to be different. But as I say, I could see this one going either way. Guys, if you want to get involved, pick all 8 games for tomorrow. Today, when you're listening to this, we've got another £100 jackpot courtesy of our sponsor Low Six, a free contest as well. So if you want to get involved, download the Low Six app. 18 plus, UK residents responsibly, and for more on that, go to begambleaware.org.
Yes, indeed. And let's see. I got 8 right last time. There'll be 8 games this time. So I'll get 8 right again, and this time it'll be perfection. Maybe I'll be allowed to make my picks on the show next week. But anything else for this week?
Just quickly, thanks to our guests for joining us. We spoke to them just before the start of the World Championship, so appreciate their time. Thought we'd get them on during one of our shows during the tournament. Should give a mention as well. We put out a couple of episodes at the start of this week. We had myself and Matthew Kernan. We had a fun chat at the weekend after the MAD launch, Modern Amateur Darts, looking into that, how it all went, the championship belts and golden gauntlets. Maybe we'll talk about that on the show during one of our next shows. I don't know if you saw much of that, but we'll come on to talk about that, I'm sure, during the course of next year as well. Also put our chat with Dave Clark, the former Sky Sports presenter of the darts for many, many years. Really good to get him on and have a chat with him. So if you missed either of those, go and check them out. And yeah, good luck to everyone if you're playing along in our low six contest as well.
Yes, indeed. Maybe someone can join me in going 8 for 8 tomorrow. We'll see. But yeah, thanks to our guests. Thanks to everyone. It's that most wonderful time of the year. It is Dartsmas. I think we'll be back during the Christmas break to recap the rest of the first and second round and look ahead to the business end of the competition. Let us know if there's anything you'd like us to discuss. And I have nothing more to add. I'm just first time in a while just enjoying life, because 2020 might have been a bad year, but it's the World Championships. As I said last time, we don't have to hang tight anymore. It's now time to let loose. So let loose and watch some Worlds.